Okay, everyone should be live on YouTube now.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. So it is 2 o'clock, so we will call our meeting of council to order and start off by just recognizing and appreciating that we are holding our meeting on the unceded territories of the Sishat and Hupachesit First Nations. Are there any late items from councillors to be added to the agenda? Seeing none. Any late items from the city clerk?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And we will just let everyone know that we are, of course, on another Zoom meeting today, but we are streaming live on YouTube. And this video will be recorded, of course, and available on our website after the fact as well. With that, would somebody like to move approval of our agenda? Moved by Councillor Solda. Is there a second?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we have minutes from the special meeting held at 10 a.m. and the regular meeting of council held at 2 p.m. on April 27th, 2020, and as well as the special meeting of council held at 10:30 a.m. on May 4th, 2020. Would somebody like to move adoption?
So moved.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and are there any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. On to public input period, which is an opportunity for members of the public to address council on topics of relevance to city council. We will take a maximum of 4 speakers for no more than 3 minutes each. Of course, I'm reading this out, but of course, we have pre-submitted questions. A reminder to the members of the public who are watching, we do have an email address, council@portalberni.ca, that you can submit questions or comments to if you have them. There's an opportunity at the beginning of our council meeting as well as at the end of our council meeting for comments and questions at the end. City Clerk, have we received any public input for today?
No public input received, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And we have no delegations on our agenda. So on to unfinished business, no unfinished business. Staff reports. Item 1 is accounts. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated May 11, 2020 be received and checks numbered 146116 to 146193 inclusive, and payments of accounts totaling $554,687.50 be approved.
Second.
Thank you. And any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. And item 2 from the Director of Parks, Recreation and Heritage, who I see popping up at just the right moment here. We have a report on UBCM Community Energy Preparedness Fund 2020 ESS Grant Award. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to advise Council of the city's success in its application to the UBCM Emergency Preparedness Fund in the amount of $25,000. Just a reminder to Mayor and Council that these grant funds will focus on equipping a mobile trailer with reception center equipment that city staff can use to erect a reception center at various locations should Echo Center not be a viable facility.
Thank you. Are there questions from Council? Councillor Solda and then Councillor Paulson.
Madam Mayor, is this the existing emergency mobile trailer we have? I can't speak English.
So, Madam Mayor, I believe we discussed this when I presented the application earlier this year. So this isn't a mobile trailer that folks would utilize to stay in or housing, that sort of thing. It's actually to set up a reception center. So it is not an existing trailer, no.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson.
In part, that was the part answer to my question is, do we have the trailer, which obviously we don't yet. And I would suspect that $25,000 is a little light to outfit the trailer and to actually purchase this trailer, but it's a great start. And I'd like to maybe, now that we have the grant, go a little further and just figure out what the actual cost would be in the long run, and I don't need an answer today.
So, Madam Mayor, just to clarify, as part of the process to apply for this fund, staff were required to submit a budget to UBCM. And so I'm confident that we'll be able to outfit that trailer for the grant funds of $25,000.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Paulson, would you like to read the motion to receive?
I'd like to move that council for the city of Port Alberni receive the report from the Director of Parks, Recreation and Heritage dated April 28th, 2020, providing information about UBCM's Community Emergency Preparedness Fund 2020 ESS Grant Award.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, and on to item 3 from the Director of Finance. We have BC Transit fare waiver.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So back on March the 30th, the council waived fees for a 30-day period for BC Transit in the city of Port Alberni. At that time, we were reacting to the need to protect the bus drivers and the delivery of the essential service of transit within the city of Port Alberni. At that time, the practice was to backload the users and have no fares charged. Since then, that practice has continued, but effective June the 1st, BC Transit will have protective measures in place to enable the bus drivers to interact with the public and have protection within the bus and have that vinyl protection in the compartment. There is also a fare change effective April 1st that was planned that council supported back on September the 3rd, 2019. And that was to reduce the daily fares from $4.25 to $4, and also to have the option to have the daily fares collected at the bus. Over the period of time that we're looking at for the waiver of fees for just over the 2 months that we have in place, this looks like it could be approximately $66,000 in reduced transit fare that we see from the service. But we understand that there will be a possibility that we could see the use of transit diminished with COVID. And if we look at a 40% reduction in our revenues, that would probably be about $135,000 over the year for 2020. So with that, we're not sure how long this will last or how this will affect us, because we do rely on transit fares from the college and other people that would be out in the community. But over the period of time, we hope that we see support from senior levels of government. So this service, we could look at reducing the level of service, but to have any reduction of level of service would take about 2 to 3 months. And really the impact on the service would be delayed stops at the same intervals. So instead of being a stop every hour, we would be 2 or 3 hours, depending on what level of service that we would see it diminish. This service is in place for essential workers and those who are vulnerable and need support services. So it's an important service that we provide to the community at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from council? Councillor Solda.
Yeah, so question is, I've asked it before, so I'm hearing that we could possibly see some recovery maybe from the senior levels of government. If not, would we be able to take some out of our recovery fund just to back it up and everything? Is there a possibility on that? Because we do have money in a recovery fund for the COVID eventually.
Madam Mayor, we have the $200,000 that we earmarked for COVID response and recovery. Council had not specifically identified items. We could take some money and allocate if need be, if that's council's desire.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment on that. That could be something we could talk about later when we do talk about what we're going to do and if the government's going to do anything for us.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I think, you know, as I said, we're not sure how long this is going to last, what the impacts are. And we will definitely be talking with senior levels of government for support as we realize some of the impacts that we see from the COVID pandemic.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Okay, Councillor Solda, would you like to read the motion?
Sure. Madam Mayor, I move that the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to execute the BC Transit 2020-2021 annual operating agreement attached to this report and dated for reference April
Solda,
1st.
sorry,
Oh, wrong one.
you're
Wrong
one
one.
ahead.
Yeah, I am. I'll move that the council continue to endorse provisions to forego bus transit revenue in the city of Port Alberni from April 19th, 2020 until May 31st, 2020.
Thank
I'll
you. Is
second
there
that, Madam Mayor.
second by Councillor
I'm just
Haggard?
in a rush.
Well, we got two transit in a
sorry.
row, so that's okay.
Yeah,
No problem.
you.
Any questions or comments or final comments on this one? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. And the next item, of course, from the Director of Finance as well, BC Transit Annual Operating Agreement for 2020 and 2021. Not sure if there's anything to add here. We've got the agreement in front of us. Did anyone have any questions about the operating agreement? Councillor Solda?
It's not necessarily on this particular agreement. What I want to know about the Sprout Lake, there is discussion with the regional district. How will that affect this agreement?
So Andrew may have something to add to this, but it's very early on with the regional district exploring the Sprout Lake route and possible connector. And so like even at the regional district, we heard a report from Transit a few days ago, I think, yeah, a few days ago. And there wasn't any real information on how that would integrate into our system and if it would be a shared system or if they would have their own system with separate fares. So it's really early in them exploring, you know, if they're even interested in starting that system. I would think at this point, it's probably far too early to figure out how it would connect in with ours. And Andrew, I'll just let you add anything there.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I don't really have much to add. I'm not too familiar with the situation at the ACRD, but agreed, it's probably early times and we'll definitely have to work through the best options for both services, whatever happens through the planning stages here.
Thank you. And at the regional district, Councillor Solda, one thing that we did talk about is the public process that we would go through to get to this point, and that their service, if they do add a Sprout Lake connector, is most likely about 3 years out. So there's a lot of planning and public engagement that goes into adding a service like that. So there'll be lots of time for council and members of the public to look at it. Councillor Poon.
Thank you. In the same vein as Councillor Solda's comment, but perhaps off topic for today, has there been a process that has been initiated to study the possibilities of a bus route going to the eastern island? Thank you.
Great question. So we have had a few conversations when BC Transit has come to council. And when they came a few months ago, what feels like a few months ago, who knows when that was, we did, as a council, we asked, and I think that they said that the first step, if we wanted to explore that, would be to let them know that we want to explore that route and they would initiate their own process. So we haven't taken any formal steps at this point, Councillor Poon, but if we wanted to explore that, then you could certainly make a motion here or in the future for staff to bring us back kind of an outline of what the steps would look like.
I don't know if that would be a burden to staff if I made that motion.
I believe from what, yeah, I believe from what Transit told us that most of the work is on Transit's end. I think a very brief staff report of like a one-page kind of an idea of how to even initiate that process is all we would probably need on our end to start. And that doesn't need to be done now. We could do it as new business in the future, and council could discuss if they want to explore that. But I think there's definitely value in more conversations about it.
Okay, I'll leave it for new business then. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the operating agreement? Councillor Paulson.
I just wanted to comment about the transit service between here and the east part of the island. To some degree, it makes sense. And I just recall transit saying really, they looked at it a number of years ago and it just wasn't a viable route. But having said that, times they are a changing, and maybe it's time just to ask the question again. And thanks, Councillor Poon, for bringing it up. You need ridership for that stuff to work, and it can't be just 2 or 3 regular riders, but be interesting to see what Transit came up with.
Absolutely. And I think it's becoming more and more relevant. Of course, the Parksville to Nanaimo has always been the kind of route that's been talked about as a great kind of, connector between 2 different communities. And now Ladysmith is working on plans to connect into that Nanaimo system as well. So yeah, I think that really, and they're not in the same regional district. Ladysmith is in the Cowichan Valley Regional District. So it's outside of a regional district, which we would be as well. But as we start to see more communities connect to that Eastern Vancouver Island line, I think there definitely becomes more relevance for us connecting to it as well. So I think that would be a very long-term project, but I think it's worth us exploring. Yeah. Okay. Seeing no other comments on the operating agreement, Councillor Solda, would you like to read the motion?
I'll make the correct motion here
You've
now.
already read half of it.
I did. Okay, Madam Mayor, I move that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the BC Transit 2020-2021 annual operating agreement attached to this report and dated for reference April 1st, 2020.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Are there any further comments? All in favor? Carried. And item 5 from the Director of Finance as well, financial reporting update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the intent here is to provide council an update to create awareness of where we are with our financial reporting requirements for the 2019 year. At this time, we have a relaxation of the reporting requirements from the province, and now any reporting that's required will be August the 31st, 2020. At this time, we can meet that deadline for completion of our financial statements. The plan is to make sure that we have this completed by early June to complete, and then that would require us to also complete the financial data requirements, the SOFI report and the annual reporting and the comprehensive financial annual report that we provide every year. So this is an update for council, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Are there questions from council? Councillor Paulson.
Great work, Andrew. I'm happy that we're kind of on schedule there. This will be the 3rd year in a row that it's been difficult to get into those financial deadlines as set by the province. I guess my question is there something maybe that we as council or something can help in the budget process to make sure that we can reach those deadlines? I mean, 2 years ago, we didn't get those financial reports in until I think late September, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe early October. And really that's not the way that we should be operating as a municipality. So my question is just maybe have a look at it and see if there's some small changes or tweaks we need to make to our budget process timing, and that would get us online for proper year-end reporting.
If I can just add to that, maybe Andrew, if you could comment on outside of COVID. I understand that our auditor did change the schedule, due to probably to COVID, but outside of COVID, were we on track to meet the deadline, the May 15th deadline?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So to go back and answer the question from Councillor Paulson, I don't believe there's anything that council can supply us at this time to support the timely completion of financial statements. As far as having this year's in hand, we did have the information. We did start to send the information to the auditor. and they were supposed to do a site visit at the last week of March. That got canceled due to COVID. During that time, they also had some other internal issues that caused another 3-week delay to their process, which pushed it back and probably impacted our ability to meet the original date of May 15th, which has now been pushed back. So we're in compliance as far as reporting standards for the province now because of that relaxation from the province. So it is just something that, I think heavily impacted our process was COVID, and then the internal issue that MNP had as far as the change and the situation that I think they were willing to provide us a letter and an update on why the delay occurred. And I suggested that they bring that forward when they present the financial statements. So.
Thank you for that.
So am I right to assume that next year we'll be right back on schedule for May the 15th? Confidently?
Madam Mayor, the finance department will strive to meet the deadlines that the province sets, and I think that's a standard that we understand the council wants to see and is expected, and we'll strive to hit the deadlines moving forward.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, Councillor Paulson, would you like to move receipt?
Okie dokie. Now, where was I here?
Item 5.
Yeah. I'd like to move that the report from the Director of Finance dated May the 5th, 2020, providing council with an update as it relates to the city's financial reporting requirements be received.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any further comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And on to item 6. I think we'll see our manager of planning popping up. There she is. From the manager of planning, development permit number 1904 for 3550 Johnston Road.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So before you for consideration is the application for development permit number 1904 for the property located at 3550 Johnston Road. The subject property is zone C4 highway commercial and is located within development permit area number 2 for commercial development. The development permit guidelines cover the form and character of the property and of the project to help ensure that the quality of the development is high and because it's in such a highly visible area of the city. The applicant has submitted site plans and building renderings in support of their development permit application, and you can see those attached to your report there. The applicant is proposing to build a 1-story wood frame commercial building, which will be used for financial services, and the building is being built specifically for the Bank of Montreal. The attached elevation plans illustrate the exterior appearance of the building. You can see from the site plans that the rear of the building will border onto the Johnston Road property line. The building itself faces inwards towards the commercial complex. The requirements for parking and off-street loading are met by the proposed development, and a drive-through lane will also be included on site that runs along the west side of the building. A concrete sidewalk will be provided along Johnston Road, connecting to Cherry Creek Road and the site entrance at Johnston Road. Internal sidewalks and pedestrian crossings are also provided, as well as a wheelchair accessible ramp down to the building from one of the primary entrances. The landscaping plan includes a mix of plants, including trees, shrubs, and ground cover grasses. A cost estimate for both the soft and hard landscaping is $118,375, and security in this amount has been provided to the city as a condition of approval for the development permit. I think it's important to note that there's a restrictive no build area covenant that is currently registered on the title of the property in favor of Canadian Tire, which is affecting a portion of the property. The location of the proposed building partially extends into this no build area, and as a condition of the development permit being considered, the applicant has agreed to have their solicitor provide a letter of undertaking outlining their commitment to remove or amend the covenant registered on title prior to building permit approval and issuance. We've also received some letters from Canadian Tire, from the applicant, but indicating support from Canadian Tire that they're okay with amending the covenant on title. So that seems to be taken care of. Overall, the development permit application for 3550 Johnston Road sufficiently meets the zoning requirements and the development permit area guidelines. And we think that the proposed project will contribute to the vibrancy of that commercial complex. So for those reasons, the planning department supports the issuance of the development permit with the conditions that are outlined in the permit attached.
Thank you very much. First, Councillor Poon for questions.
Thank you. I'm very glad to see that there's ongoing investment within our community, and also even during this hard, difficult times, people are pressing on with their developments. So I'm very happy to see that. But I wonder if this means the Bank of Montreal will be relocating from uptown area, and kind of sad to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from council? Councillor Paulson.
I'd like to reiterate Councillor Poon's state. I gather this is not a second branch for Port Alberni, that they'll be moving out of the 3rd Avenue area, and I understand the corporation's thinking on that, but it is a blow to the 3rd Avenue area. I think it's one of the 3 financial institutions and is a blow down there. But congratulations to them on their design and investment in the community. The only question I have, maybe this would be to our Director of Planning, is it's a 1-story building, and from Johnson Road, as you're driving by, you will see the back of the building and the roof. And I'm just wondering if there's any consideration given to the roof, and maybe some of the new buildings have a garden or something like that on the roof. And just as I say, you're driving by, what you'll be looking down on from Johnson Road will be either at eye level on the roof or whatever. I don't know if anybody's given any consideration to that. But great design. It's going to be a new building. I'm all for it. Just some little things. That's all.
Thank you for that, Councillor Paulson. Any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Looking at the drawings and the perceived photos of the building, it looks like we'll be in for a drive-through as well on that. Can the direct manager of planning confirm that?
Yes. Caitlin, if you want to speak to that again.
Sure, yeah. So I can answer those couple of questions. So yes, there will be a drive-through for the bank. And again, that will be located to the west side of the building. So that will be probably a big enhancement for what that specific financial service institution is looking to provide. They are, from my understanding, looking to relocate from the Uptown District over to the Alberni Mall site. And in terms of the kind of the exterior and the roof of the building, I did have quite a few conversations at length with the applicant and their architect about kind of improving the rear of the building with some windows to kind of create that a bit more of a connection so that it's not just a blank wall. Kind of alluded to the Boston Pizza building as a good example of having a bit more connection to that main corridor in terms of the building appearance. So they made some minor modifications, but they said that they were quite restricted because of, I guess the Bank of Montreal has some national guidelines that they follow. Those were never provided to me, but I trust that they're following some sort of kind of consistent guidelines for their buildings and construction. So they made some minor improvements. You could certainly ask to see more. That's, I think, well within the realm of your influence.
Thank you.
Councillor Solda.
So, Madam Mayor, the question is maybe to the manager of planning. Do we know what's going to happen to the their existing building, because obviously we're going to have an empty building up there, and what's their plans? Did we ask, or do we know, or?
So the answer to that is no. I don't have any indication at this point in time what's happening to that building. I've been working with the applicant and their architect on the development permit, not necessarily on discussions of what's happening with their current building, but we could absolutely reach out to them and try to get an answer for council to get a sense of what's happening there for sure.
Thank you. And I know that, we have been aware for some time that the Bank of Montreal is planning to leave. They're planning to move and build a new building that suited their needs better. So I know that there have been some communications already on potential plans and options. And I know that generally there are members of our staff who have started those conversations. So we recognize that it is, a key location in the uptown for sure, but also that it probably doesn't really suit their long-term needs due to some of the physical challenges with space and that kind of thing. So more conversation on that absolutely as we move forward. Are there any other comments? Okay, Councillor Solda, would you like to read the motion?
Okay, Madam Mayor, I move that the Council for the City of Port Alberni approve development permit number 1904, and that the city clerk be authorized to sign the permit, including the following Schedule B development plans, all prepared by Color Board 8 Architecture and Design Inc., titled Alberni Mall Pad Building D, and dated September 2019 as follows. Do you want all those little A, B, C, D to K included?
Maybe just say A to K inclusive as written.
Okay, A to K as inclusive as in written.
Thank you.
It's easier.
Yes. Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And any further comments? Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the background of the application, they're saying they have no reason to believe there's any site contamination issues. If they indeed find something like that, would it be up to them or would it be up to the city to make it clean again?
I would imagine it would be up to them, but our manager of planning could probably answer that question for us.
Yeah, it would be up to the property owner.
Thank you. Okay, well, seeing no more questions, I will just say that generally, although I do, understand that this is a loss to the uptown, I think it's excellent to see a long time business in our community investing in a new space, and also great to see that location being filled finally, because we know that that land has been there and vacant and looking for different opportunities for quite some time. So I think overall this is a really exciting development. So with that, on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Manager of Planning. Okay, item 7 from the Economic Development Manager. We have a report on actions to support small business sector during and post COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by just thanking the small team that worked with me on the report. I think we exemplified the lead, follow, or get out of the way mantra at various points in time as we move through it. I think the report is fairly straightforward. I'm proposing that most of the available allocation for the economic development function be invested in support of our small business sector, given all that has happened and will take place with the pandemic and the measures being adopted by senior governments, health authorities, and others. For council's information, last year, the marketing, and we're getting some feedback there. Last year, the marketing funds were invested in the Bang the Table public engagement platform, which you know is Let's Connect PA, our Meltwater Media Services, cruise ship training and welcome, Explore Port Alberni, Zen Seekers video and blogs, Invest in BC, the community support portion of the BC Ale Trail, and so on. And again, last year, the consulting service fees and contract services funds were invested in the proposed district energy system, the provincial nominee program entrepreneur regional pilot, our response to the food hub RFP, the Christmas shop local campaign, our portion of the wood biomass project, contracting out of the cruise ship committee work, and appraisals of 4 city-owned properties. So that provides the background on where the funds went last year, similar allocations in previous years. And as I say, I think the report is fairly straightforward. I would like to recognize that every member of council has a business or 2 or 3, or has a spouse in business or has had a business. So your input on any component of the report or the appendix is welcome.
Thank you very much. Council, questions, comments? Councillor Paulson.
I just want to thank our manager of economic development for putting this plan together. I think we always think of economic development as trying to attract new business and what have you, but I think this covers an area of the economic development department, which is to monitor, oversee what we actually presently have in the community and to protect that. One area in the report that I was really pleased to see is there's a component in there with regards to application assistance that would give information and help to people who maybe don't understand the bureaucracy of the federal and provincial programs. I love that part. And the only other thing at the end of the day, great report, by the way, very detailed, but at the end of the day, I'm sure you will develop an easy to decipher Reader's Digest version of the program. I commend you and your partners, Community Futures, the Chamber of Commerce, job well done, and we need to be part of this recovery thing. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Councillor Poon.
Thank you. Thank you for preparing this report. I think that in general, I am supportive of supporting the small business sector, but in terms of some of the initiatives, I have some concerns. I think that perhaps the initiatives are trying to cover too broad of a range of businesses, and perhaps we should focus more specifically, and perhaps the money that is distributed might be a bit larger in size than, because I find that with businesses, it's more likely that the business has, a $10,000 problem, not a $1,000 problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Solda.
Yeah, so I'm on the same path as Councillor Poon. I would actually, there's a lot of mom and pops, and I've been doing a lot of advocating with the governments and that regarding the mom and pops business, the smaller businesses. And then there's businesses in our community that have just been purchased just before the whole thing, the virus and everything, and there's nothing there for them. So I would really like us to reach out to some of these businesses and that the smaller mom and pops, they can't touch it. And I've been talking with Mr. Deacon about that. So it's nothing that nobody really knows about. So I think it's great otherwise that we're going to be on that ground. And again, economic development, it's all about keeping what we have too. So, and bringing in new businesses, but it's important to keep what we got. So I think that's important. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, great report, Mr. Deacon. I think we should take our hats off to Community Futures, who I think got this ball rolling. Lori's done an excellent job up there of getting things going. I think it's important that we support the Shop Local initiative because, hey, shopping local keeps us alive here. I think the biggest challenge to the small business person today is the staff retention. There are people that are laid off and maybe going looking for other jobs. And when this thing finally calms down, we're going to have trouble restaffing again. I'm worried that we got to get going on this. I know the hardest hit was probably the food industry right now because of all the rules and regulations, but yeah, let's move ahead on this and work out the details later. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm really appreciative of Mr. Deacon to consider our small business sector in our community. As he said in his report, we kind of had a real double whammy. 8 months of a strike, which they struggled, just got open, and now they're closed again or struggling with COVID-19. So I really appreciate his attention to this. Now, I do have a lot of detailed questions. I'm not sure if this is the right time to go through them or just support the concept right now, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Haggard, you are certainly welcome to go through. If you have actual questions for Pat, you can ask them and he can respond if he's able, for sure.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Pat, I went on the website of Community Futures, and some of their core services that they advertise that they offer: small business training, business succession advice, and startup expansion consulting. But you're allocating $35 in this budget to do those same kinds of services, and that you're offering to partner with Community Futures. So they're already getting funding for these services. So I'm wondering why you're allocating $35,000 to services that they already offer.
We actually think that there's going to be an increased uptake on those services. Community Futures has itself reached out to its parent organization and asked for additional assistance in providing some of those services. So we've, where we think there's going to be increased uptake on this, I'm thinking that we may need to come to the table. I did recognize that in providing council with this level of detail, that there would be or might be a concern that we would dive deeply into it. At the same time, as I mentioned, I respect the fact that every member of council is or has been involved with the small business. So appreciate the feedback. I'm taking notes.
Okay. I'm sorry, Pat, but sometimes my internet comes out, so I didn't hear all of your answer. So yeah, I did hear that Community Futures has applied for their funding for an increase. So can we kind of hold off on this until they get an answer from their funder?
Yes.
Okay. My next question is, you've allocated $12,000 to provide website e-commerce assistance to businesses. So with these businesses that need assistance, would they first be referred to the Digital Economy Rapid Response Recovery Program offered through Innovation Island?
Yes. And what we've learned about that, though, is that Innovation Island will be providing them with some general feedback, but they will be looking to connect them if the request for assistance is actually uh, for services beyond what they can provide. They will be matching them with a digital services provider, hopefully out of Port Alberni or at least close to Port Alberni. But while they will pay for part of the services that the company is providing, they won't pay for it all. So we're proposing to assist in that.
Great, thank you. My next question is about your communication plan. And I know we need to ensure that the community is receiving consistent messaging about our recovery. Have you been working with our communications director on this communications plan?
Have indeed. And we're all conscious of the fact that more communication needs to be done. Hence the budgets or the budget that is there.
And can you tell me what the attraction website and digital marketing hub is? I don't know what these programs are.
Sure. For some time, I've felt that the economic development pages on the city's website don't do the function justice, and we're constrained there. So we're moving to create a website that is more easily accessed by smart devices, your phone, your laptop, your tablet, and would be more focused on the investment attraction and marketing of the community than what we've been able to do. A perfect example is this situation. I think all of myself, the Chamber, Community Futures, the Port Authority were hoping for or wishing for faster ways of getting information out to the business community. If that website had been in place, I think we would have utilized that more. Grateful for the Chamber's almost daily updates, and there's additional information that we would have liked to have seen go out to the community. ICE-T has approved this project and approved an allocation of $18,000 towards, or up to $18,000 towards that website after it's built.
Thank you, Pat. Just to add to that, you talked about business attraction. What about resident attraction? One thing that's come out of this COVID-19 is so many people are working from home now. And I've read that productivity is actually going up from people working at home. So that more people working home, they might be enticed to move out to rural communities so they can work at home. And when you have a crisis like this, I mean, who would not rather be in a small community compared to a Vancouver apartment or a Toronto apartment? Has your committee talked about resident attraction at all?
We have indeed, and I think this is where we're really fortunate as a community. The Rural Dividend Fund approved $100,000 resident and worker attraction program for us early last year. And we started to move to implement the project, and then stopped because the first item was a research of the Canadian public about their impressions of Port Alberni before we actually jumped into the key messages that we would be delivering to the residents, or sorry, to potential residents. And then just as we were getting underway again, the COVID crisis reared its head, and everything that we are learning definitely supports what you've just said about working from home. And of course, we do have businesses that are continuing to expand as this, as we're working our way through this. And we will be implementing that resident and worker attraction program. You may have seen that Ucluelet Harbor Seafoods just mentioned today that they're going to be needing 100 new workers in part, but because of the second new ship that the Independent Seafood Canada has brought to the community, in part, in large part, thanks to the Port Authority's initiatives there. The Colson Group, their aerospace division, has a number of unfilled jobs. So we will be launching that program to attract workers. Also, Councillor Haggard, I know you've been on a number of webinars. You may have seen Tulsa Remote referenced in a few of those webinars. That's something that I'd like to ask council to consider, but that's at a future point in time.
Thank you, Pat. You have $5,000 allocated for labor market adjustments, and you talk about working with employees to ensure right skill sets are in place. Would that not be the responsibility of the Alberni Valley Employment Center, not economic development? Can you explain that one to me, please?
Sure. So Bill Brown at Alberni Valley Employment Center has seen this document, and he has participated in it. The allocation was for in case that the Employment Center was not able to recruit or attract the funds that they needed for particular businesses. And to Councillor Washington's point about the fact that we believe a lot of employees are either not going to be available or are going to be reluctant to jump back into employment for particular businesses until they're absolutely certain that all of the measures that need to be in place for their health and safety are in place. And we believe that most of this, that $5,000 will go towards labor market partnerships with North Island College, for example, Indigenous organizations, and others, along with the Alberni Valley Employment Center.
Thank you. Has your committee considered a branding recovery strategy working with our West Coast communities? During the fires, it seemed that communities that work together as a region fared much better than the ones who went off on their own. Has that been discussed at all?
It has been, and I recognize that as soon as the report and the appendix went off to Tim for his review, or the CAO for his review, that I had forgotten to acknowledge the regional, or the value of a regional attention to recovery, which is something that you had brought up on a previous occasion, and it's something that has been I think, reinforced on last week's BC Economic Development Association webinar. Just that, exactly that. There is value in regional initiatives to recover, and that is something that we will bring forward to our West Coast and our East Coast neighbors, as well as the Indigenous communities that surround us.
A lot of communities are forming an economic recovery task force. So is that what you consider this committee as titled? And will you continue meeting as a committee, or are you kind of finished now that you've got your plan? So can you kind of comment on that, please?
Well, the Emergency Operations Center has recommended, has recommended the creation of an economic recovery working group, and they've actually they see that the primary responsibility for the creation of that would rest with the economic development manager and the Chamber of Commerce. So I know that the other members of the team, the task force that has worked together thus far would be involved in that, but there would be others.
Okay. I know everyone on the committee personally. I've known them all for several years, and I know everybody has their heart and soul in this community, but I was just a little bit concerned about the lack of diversity on the community or on the committee. But anyway, that's great. Thank you. And you can go off the hot seat now, Pat. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions, Councillor Haggard. Are there other questions from council? Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple questions, Pat. There's a couple things here. I just don't understand exactly what they're to do on this. It's on page 5 of 10. Provide support in closing a sale transition, support coaching for new owners after the sale closes. I would have thought there might be people that are already doing that. And the second question is this gift certificate site. Why would you need such a thing? It seems quite easy to get gift certificates by going into a store generally. Could you just add a little bit of detail to those two, please?
Yeah. So again, we believe that the number of business owners who might be seeking to sell or pivot to a different kind of business is going to be increased beyond what Community Futures normally or venture or what Community Futures or Venture Connect normally assist. So we believe that there's going to be a number of entrepreneurs who are going to be quite anxious about moving forward with that. And then with respect to the gift site, there are people we know who've been reluctant to walk into a shop and pick up a gift certificate. So we had looked at a number of gift certificate sites that have been developed by other communities, and had decided to approach one or build one ourselves with a view to keeping it ongoing once we were through the initiative. And more recently, after taking or getting a couple of quotes on what that kind of page would cost to build, we're thinking now we'll just create a landing page where every business that has a gift certificate can be featured. And it's just one additional opportunity for people to find a way of supporting their business. We don't, I mean, while it would be in some respects ideal to have one single point of access, in this case, we're thinking any and every way of finding out that there are different ways of supporting your business is an appropriate approach.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Okay, seeing none. I just want to thank you, Pat, and everyone who has worked on this for putting at the forefront of your minds our small business sector and just really recognizing the importance of it. I see, or I hope that we are kind of using this as a working document that will adapt. I think that there's some fantastic initiatives here. I don't know if I would see them all personally as priorities during this time. So I'm really supportive of allocating the funds so that you and your group work with on the projects that you deem to be the most, essential and timely. I'm not sure that all of what is being proposed can be done. And I think that there are some places where we might be duplicating a service that isn't necessarily a top priority for us to add leverage to. But I do think that the group that you've put together is the best. I think that you guys are well established to kind of determine the highest need for use of funds right now. So I'm confident in you guys to help work and support the businesses that we have in our community and to determine how to best do that. So I'm certainly happy to allocate the funds, and I think that from my perspective, if this evolves as the needs change and as you kind of start to see what you can get done and what might not make the most sense, I think that's perfectly fine too. It doesn't have to stay this exact use of funds.
Thank you.
With that, would somebody like to read the motions? Councillor Poon.
Thank you. I'll move that council authorize staff to redirect 90,000 of the 2020 economic development allocation for marketing activities to be invested in initiatives to support the small business sector through the COVID-19 pandemic measures.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any further comments on this motion? Seeing that. Oh, Councillor Haggard.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Can we just make sure that the public knows this is money that's already budgeted and this is the economic development budget, not new money? Thank you.
Correct. Thank you. That's a great point. So just to be clear, this is money that's already in the budget, just being redirected to new initiatives given the circumstance that we're in with COVID. Thank you for that. Okay, so on that first motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And if you want to read the second one as well.
Yes, I'll move that council authorize staff to redirect 50,000 of the 2020 economic development allocations for consulting service fees and contract services to be invested in initiatives to support the small business sector through the COVID-19 pandemic measures.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that one? Seconded by Councillor Washington. Thank you. And any further comments? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to echo your comments that I'm very supportive of this initiative and I'm very appreciative of the work that this committee has done and what they've come up with. But I just want to make sure again that we don't duplicate services and give money to services another organization is already offering. But I think, again, I agree we have to be very fluid at this time and sort of go with what the demand in the marketplace is, as any business would. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so motion is moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And moving on to bylaws, and we have one item from the Manager of Planning, the official community plan and zoning bylaw amendments for 5269 Pineo Road. Welcome.
Thank you. So before you for consideration, our bylaw amendments for the subject property 5269 Pineo Road. The purpose of the bylaw amendments, sorry, is to facilitate the construction of a second small home on the site that would provide accommodations for a family member. The subject property is a large rectangular parcel that is currently zoned RR2, semi-rural residential, and has one single family home and a shed located on site. So the applicant is requesting that the property be rezoned to RM2, medium density multiple family residential, which would also require that the property be included in development permit area number 1, multifamily development. The current zoning only allows or only permits one principal building per lot, whereas the RM2 zone allows for multiple principal buildings on site. So while the general purpose of the RM2 zone is to provide for medium density multiple family residential development, in this instance, the rezoning would only result in one small additional home on the property. So this is because the city has previously discussed interest in permitting laneway and carriage homes, but we have not yet introduced those uses. So therefore, the RM2 zone really provides a legal alternative for residential property owners looking to construct multiple principal dwellings on a single site. And while this method may be appropriate for some properties, such as this one, due to its size and location, I still think it would be probably prudent for the city to develop regulations and bylaws to permit laneway and carriage homes in a very specific kind of way. So the Advisory Planning Commission has reviewed this application at their April 9th meeting and provided comments and recommendations to council to consider. They indicated overall their support, but recommended that any multi-family style development should be limited by requesting that a 219 covenant be registered on the property to restrict development to only one additional dwelling that must not exceed 700 square feet. The APC also indicated that they would like to see the city proceed with developing laneway and carriage home regulations. So in the report, I have outlined 3 possible options to consider with regards to this OCP and rezoning application. The first option is to proceed with the bylaw amendments with the proposed conditions, including the 219 covenant. Option 2 would be to proceed with the bylaw amendments, but without proposed conditions. And option 3 would be not to proceed with the bylaw amendments or to provide alternative direction. So option 1 is being recommended by staff and the APC. And if council gives first and second reading to the proposed bylaw amendments, then staff will work with the applicant to provide the security required for water, sewer, storm connections and drafting a section 219 covenant. And then once these conditions have been met, staff will bring back a report requesting that council schedule a public hearing to proceed with the process. So the planning department supports amending the official community plan and zoning bylaw as the changes meet the strategic policy objectives of the OCP. City council should consider how these amendments may impact the long-term vision and goals expressed in the community in the official community plan. And likewise, city council should consider whether the proposed amendments are appropriate for the site and how a change may impact the immediate neighborhood. Ideally, staff would also love to hear from council a bit more specifically on the direction on whether or not they would like to see laneway and carriage home discussions advanced as a priority at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Washington and then Councillor Poon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Carriage homes, yeah, that's a good, thank you for bringing that up. I'd like to see when we have time to discuss that further. And my second thought is have we developed a strategy for a public hearing, considering the pandemic that we're in?
Great question. What will a public hearing look like?
If I could, I would maybe defer that to the clerk's department just to answer.
Sure, I know that this is something that all municipalities and local governments have been kind of waiting for changes to legislation for. Twyla, are you able to add anything to that?
Yes, I can. We have received a new ministerial order, which will allow municipalities to conduct public hearings electronically. So while staff work with the applicant in this specific case to secure the water, sewer, and storm connection requirements and the covenant, we in the interim will be working on how we will accommodate public participation at a public hearing via Zoom. And we will be prepared for that when council's asked to move forward for public hearings.
Great. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay, other questions or comments on that? Oh, sorry, Councillor Poon we had next.
Thank you. Yeah, I would be in support of developing a carriage home and laneway home policy, but I'm concerned with what kind of timeline it would take to develop this policy and whether the planning department has capacity currently to do so.
Caitlin, go ahead if you have a comment on that.
Yeah, and this was a kind of a similar question was brought up by the at the Advisory Planning Commission on whether it made sense to kind of bring this forward in advance of an OCP review as well. I think this is something that we could advance, relatively quickly. I think we want to have a thorough process, get some input and do some research, of course, so that our bylaws fit our community and make sense. We're going through a process of bringing on additional staff, so I think that should hopefully allow us to move a bit more quickly with these things and bring them forward to council. But I think it would be something that we should, we could prioritize and bring back in a quick and expedited fashion if that's something that council wants to direct us to do.
Thank you, Councillor Poon.
What about secondary suites and things like that? Is that in the works as well?
Yeah, perhaps maybe our CAO could speak a little bit to that process and where things are at with that.
Madam Mayor, Council, the Council has been very clear they want staff to bring back reports updating or enabling Council to update the city's bylaws regarding secondary suites. That work is still to come, and I believe the manager of planning will be coming to Council in the near future with a recommended path on that one.
Thank you. Other questions from Council? Okay, seeing none, I will just say that I am certainly supportive of moving forward on this application, but I do think generally that we should not be enabling carriage homes in this way. We should be enabling carriage homes through a specific process for carriage homes. And I know that I've had many people reach out to me specifically, over the period of time where our housing crisis has gotten more and more and more challenging, wanting information on building carriage homes or putting, more or adding legal secondary suites to their homes. And we haven't, and I've been telling them we're working on, we're going to work on carriage homes. We're going to put regulations in. So I think that there are a lot of people who have been waiting for us to get to that. And I do feel it's a bit unfair that we are sneaking someone ahead, not sneaking someone ahead, but it feels a bit like we're sneaking someone ahead when there's other people who have been waiting for a process to come out. So I don't want to penalize the people who have, put in an application for another way to get where they're trying to go. I'm certainly supportive of moving forward with this, but my feeling is that we should be moving forward with carriage homes and and reviewing our secondary suite bylaw as a priority, given the housing crisis that we are in and have been in for several years now. And I know that when carriage homes and secondary suites originally came forward, and I know that this is, well before you started, Caitlin. It was in 2015 when council originally asked for to start working on regulations for carriage homes and amend our secondary suite bylaw. They were linked together and it was because council recognized the approaching housing crisis at that time. I think the housing crisis has gotten worse and worse since. We've seen one bedroom basement suites being listed for $1,500 a month in Port Alberni. That tells me we have a very serious housing crisis in our community. I think that these items have been linked together because we see it as a step toward kind of easing that and really trying to help the affordability aspect. So I think that these items should be looked at together, and I think they should be looked at as a priority. And I'm glad to see that there is a way for anybody who might want to come and put in an application for a laneway home before that is done. But I would ideally like us to have a process in place so that people know that they can look at the regulations and see if they fit or not. So I'm optimistic that we are getting there, and glad to see certainly that there is interest right now from someone, and it looks like a great candidate for a laneway home. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the Varsity Planning Commission, I expressed that I'm supportive of this because when you drive by the piece of property, you won't even be able to tell that it's a laneway house. It looked like two entirely separate units just because of the way it's laid out. And I don't like to do one-offs, but this is a very specific application. But what the benefit of it was is it brought the subject of laneway houses and carriage houses to the forefront, and now we can express to the planning department that this is one of our priorities, so we can get going on that initiative. So it did have its benefits of bringing it forward to the Advisory Planning Commission process. Thank you.
For sure. And I know that there are a lot more people out there interested in doing laneway houses and legal secondary suites. So yeah, I think it's a great indicator that people are interested, and it will be nice to see this go through, or if it does go through, it'll be nice to see a carriage home built in the community for the community to see how it can add, add vibrancy without detracting from a neighborhood as well. So this will be a great example for us to work from. Okay, Councillor Haggard, would you like to read the motions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the official community plan amendment number 30, 5269 Pineo Road, Murphy, bylaw number 5006 be now introduced and read a first time.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Go ahead and continue.
I move that official community plan amendment number 30, 5269 Pineo Road, Murphy, bylaw number 5006 be read a second time.
Is there a seconder for that one? Seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried.
I move that zoning bylaw amendments number 39, 5269 Pineo Road, Murphy, bylaw number 5007 be now introduced and read a first time.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments on this one either. All in favor? Carried.
I move that zoning bylaw amendment number 39, 5269 Pineo Road, Murphy, bylaw number 5007 be read a second time.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Thank you. And any further comments on this one? All in favor? Carried. And one more for you, Councillor Haggard.
I move that as a condition of the bylaw amendments and prior to final adoption of the amending bylaws, the applicant be required to provide the following. Number 1, security for the required water, sewer, and storm connections. And number 2, that a covenant be registered on the property to restrict development of the property to no more than one additional dwelling in addition to the principal dwelling, and that the additional dwelling must not exceed 700 square feet.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Solda. And any comments on these conditions? Okay, I personally think that these are very reasonable conditions to be put on, especially given that we don't have currently the regulations in place. So I think this is a great starting point. Okay, all moved and seconded, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay. And council, I don't think we need to give any specific direction. I think the conversation has been that council, it is a priority for council to see carriage home regulations and a review of our secondary suite, legal secondary suite and authorized secondary suite programs. Is that the general consensus? Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, Councillor Corbeil.
I would just add to that, the relocated homes too was something that we had once talked about.
Thank you. I think that's a great point. That could be certainly added into the kind of review that we're looking to do. And I think those three items link together quite well. Caitlin, do you have any comments to add?
Yeah, I was actually originally hoping to get a report to you on this council agenda about the relocated buildings and homes, which is something that you had requested a couple months ago now. Sorry, that's taken a bit longer than probably you and I had both hoped. But I'm hoping to bring it forward to the next council agenda.
That's great. There's no timelines these days. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to receiving that. Okay, so and Caitlin, I don't think we'll make any motion, just kind of the general consensus on those items being a priority, and looking forward to moving forward on them. Okay. All right, so moving on to correspondence for action. We have the first item is an email dated April 27th, 2020, advising a local resident, Carolina Tatouche, has been awarded a BC Achievement Community Award for her role of youth and elder work at the Hupetchisitt First Nation. So really exciting to see that. Would somebody like to move receipt of this?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Great. And I think we should also forward a letter of congratulations. Oh yeah, sorry, that is in the written motion if I would have had someone read it, but we will add that to our receipt of the report, or of the letter. Really exciting to see when a local person receives this kind of recognition. So I think we'll certainly write a letter on behalf of Mayor and Council. So that's moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And no proclamations today. Correspondence for information. We have two items. City Clerk.
Yes, Madam Mayor. A letter from the Port Alberni Port Authority, which is just summarizing their activities for February, March, and April. And then we have correspondence from Rebecca Terapaki and expressing concerns regarding the safe injection site on 3rd Avenue.
Thank you. Would someone like to move receipt, please?
Madam Mayor?
Yep.
May I ask the CAO to explain to the public about the safe injection site? How little or how much authorization we have on the safe injection site and who operates it, because this is one of the most talked about topics in Port Alberni, and I would just like to get a little bit more clarification for the public, if that would be okay.
Thank you. And I think the first thing that I would say is I think it's important for us to, I know that the letter does say safe injection site, but I think it's important for us to use appropriate language. This is not a safe injection site. A safe injection site provides drugs, and this is not, our site does not. It's an overdose prevention site.
My apologies, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think it is important. It's basically a supervised use site. So it is important to differentiate, and there is a lot of misinformation around that in the community. And CAO, if you want to provide some information, that would be great.
Sure, Madam Mayor, thank you. I can provide some information. The overdose prevention site is a responsibility of Island Health and not the city. And it was established by Island Health in response to critical health issue in the community. and other similar facilities were established in other communities as well. When it was established in its current location, it met the zoning of the building that was there already. And so there was no approval, if you like, of the city for that, or no ability for the city to approve or engage on that. And as you mentioned, it's a safe use site, and it has saved lives because people are able to use drugs there in a manner that is safe for them. But it hasn't been without its controversy in the community, and there's a sense that some of the social activity problems in that neighborhood are associated to the site. I did get an email. I inquired with VIA this morning for an update, and I did get an email back from Dr. Paul Hasselback that I will summarize now, if I may. Dr. Hasselback made us aware that an environmental health officer from Island Health attended to the area around the overdose prevention site with the city's bylaw officer, one of our bylaw officers, last week. And those two officers identified a specific concern that may be associated with a specific individual's behavior. And I believe that's related to the complaint on the agenda. An investigation continues into the options, and some options are being considered. Dr. Hasselback feels that this particular case might be more of a housing needs issue than a overdose prevention site issue. He says that this is an issue that requires collaborative efforts of multiple agencies, including the City of Port Alberni. The city continues to work with VIA and other stakeholders on trying to address some of the challenges in that neighborhood. I hope that helps, Council.
Thank you. And yeah, I think that it is, it's important for people to be aware that, although I personally believe that that site is incredibly important to our community, and it is saving lives of people who are living in very challenging circumstances. I also recognize that it is not without its issues. And I do, feel for the people who are around some of the challenges that are associated with that site. And we are not the operator, and we are not the regulator in most cases. So we are aware of the community concerns, and we have brought those forward, and we are looking for solutions and whatever we can do to ensure that that site operates as smoothly as possible without without having to be any kind of nuisance to its neighbors. So it's not a simple problem, and it's not a simple solution. And certainly we, as with the entire overdose crisis that is going on, there's no simple answer. Councillor Paulson, and then Councillor Solda.
Point taken from the letter writer. I do feel a little bit disappointed that in this particular correspondence that shot was taken at CMHA and the new cleanup program. And I think we need to make it clear that the cleanup program was not solely intended for cleanup around that particular facility. And I think that on the positive side, I think that that program is working in particular in our downtown area. And I mean, it's an ongoing problem that you clean it up today, it's just going to be back there again tomorrow. But I still believe strongly in that CMHA program. And I think that some of the criticism was a little bit unfair, but that's my opinion. And certainly the writer has their own opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
Yeah, well, people in general, like the public, if they don't know exactly what things are for, they're going to take a stab at what they think it is. And I wonder, Madam Mayor, if it would be a good idea to invite someone from the safe injection site to come and tell us exactly what they're doing, give us some stats, how it's helping others, and what they see when they're there themselves. It's time to have someone come and talk to us instead of everybody's going, well, I think this, well, I think that, and I think it's important.
I'm sure you mean the overdose prevention site.
Oh, yes, yes, yeah, okay. It's been thrown
Thank you,
around.
Councillor Folda.
I'm
And
sure I meant that.
yes, I'm sure also. We have had Dr. Hasselback come in the past and provide information on, the purpose of the site and the amount of people that they see and the amount of overdoses that they've had and that kinds of thing. So we certainly could invite Dr. Hasselback again. We also could invite someone from the shelter, as the Shelter Society is the operator of the site. And I think that it's our duty to make sure that if there is an issue around the site, that we are holding them to the same standard that everyone else has to be held to. We want to make sure that that site does not contribute negatively to the area. The neighbors have a right to be able to enjoy their properties as well. But I think we want to be very cautious to not get into should we have this site or should we not debate, because first of all, it's not the decision of a municipal government. It is the response to the overdose crisis that is going on province-wide. So, but I think absolutely we could invite the Shelter Society and Dr. Hasselback to come and just bring information on the site.
I think that's important, Madam Mayor, to have not just Dr. Hasselback, and it needs to be somebody from the ground up, right? And that's what people need to hear. So
Okay.
Certainly agree with you.
Thank you. Councillor Poon.
Thank you. I originally raised my hand to correct Councillor Solda on the overdose prevention site, but I think the community action team has been doing a lot of work in this area to provide information to the public, and I really encourage members of the public to attend the events put on by Community Action Team. And I've been on a liaison for that committee before, and I think it's a really good source of information. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Any more comments on this? Would somebody like to move receipt of the correspondence? Okay, moved by Councillor Paulson, seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And moving on, we have no report from in camera. So on to council reports. Any items councillors would like to highlight from their reports? Councillor Paulson.
Just, I'd like to bring a little brightness or good news to council reports, and thank you, Madam Mayor, for delegating myself to go down to the waterfront and welcome the owners of the new fish processing ship to our harbor. It's interesting to note that one of the partners in the business is actually a young lady that was born and raised in Port Alberni, started in Beaver Creek, grew up in the Sproat Lake area, and very dynamic young couple, and it will provide much needed employment for our community. I think up to 70 individuals, probably 50 of them would be local people. The second thing that I want to bring up, and it just escaped my thought, is while I was down there, I was introduced to another young couple from Campbell River. And they are in the process of moving their business to Port Alberni to participate in the food hub. This young couple has already bought a home in the community, and they're bringing 14 employees, new members to our community, and another young dynamic couple, and they will be involved in the food hub. And I just wanted to mention that there's some really positive things going on in our community. Construction is going crazy right now. New business is coming. So I just wanted to bring that good news to us today.
Thank you for that, Councillor Paulson, and thank you for attending that as well. It is, and I think, credit to the Port Authority for the projects that they are successfully bringing to the community, and certainly around the seafood and aquaculture industry. It's exciting to see some of the things going on. Cascadia seaweed is another one, really exciting, just innovative work being done and being done in our community. So I'm feeling very optimistic about the future of that industry. Any other items? Okay, seeing none. I'm shushing my 5-year-old who says, just tell everyone to go home. That's what he is commenting on this, by the way. So we're almost there, but not quite. Okay, would somebody like to move receipt of council reports?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Great, and seconded by Councillor Paulson. Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you. That brings us to new business. Any items to bring forward? Councillor Poon.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to give notice of motion and so that we can discuss the potential of a bus route to the Eastern Island.
Thank you. I think we could bring that forward as a notice of motion and could be worded something like notice of motion for staff to bring forward a brief report outlining the preliminary steps needed to explore a bus route to Parksville.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
Wonderful. So we won't vote on it today, but that will be included in new business for our next council meeting.
Thank you.
Any other new business to bring forward? Okay, seeing none, on to question period. City Clerk, have we received any questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have received 3 questions from Mr. Anderson regarding the Kingsway Hotel.
Okay, before we have the questions, would any, sorry, Councillor Poon, go ahead.
Thank you. Would it be appropriate for me to recuse myself at this time?
It's your choice if you want to recuse yourself. So yeah, we will be discussing the Kingsway Hotel.
I will recuse myself on the basis that I am a representative of the corporate owner. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, City Clerk, you can go ahead with the questions.
Okay, so question 1, what reason has Councillor Poon given for not applying for permits prior to the start of this project? At the last meeting, Mr. Ply responded, I would have to ask the councillor that question. Councillor Poon had recused herself, conflict of interest. Has this question not been asked of Ms. Poon? Second question, to ensure workers, tenants, and patrons were protected from hazardous materials, and considering Helen Poon is quoted as saying, anyone living in the rooms, if they wish, could stay, and we will work around them. Why in a building permit built in 1923, why in a building built in 1923 was an inspection not done regarding hazardous materials? And the third and final question, WorkSafe BC were told by Helen Poon that all the interior work was finished and they closed the file. Further evidence arose proving that major work continued to be done and the file was reopened. Why did Councillor Poon mislead officials of WorkSafe BC?
Thank you. So I can appreciate that Mr. Anderson is trying to hold a member of council accountable, but the information being requested is not information that council would ever have available because it's not the business of council. Where it would become the business of council would be if, at this point, staff felt they were not able to follow process. So CAO, I'm going to ask you for, if you could please let us, verify for us and give us comfort that we know Councillor Poon has recused herself from this, which is normal for someone to do in this circumstance when business they are related to is brought to council. Can you please confirm for us that process is being followed and that you're going to ensure that process is followed with regards to this issue?
Madam Mayor, Council, it is my understanding, everything that I know on this file is that the city's processes are being followed as they would if any other individual property owner was in a similar circumstance. And it's my intention that we will continue to have our building official act in an unfettered way that in a manner that reflects that it doesn't matter whether the owner of the building is a councillor or not. And if I feel in any way that I'm fettered in making sure that that's okay, then I will report back to council on that. And I will ensure that staff are comfortable to report through me or around me if they feel that they're somehow are being asked to do something they shouldn't be being asked to do.
Thank you. And I would ask that you, if that does become the case, that you do report back to council, because then of course it does become a council issue. But short of that, I don't believe that any of this information being asked for is the business of council. And it's not information that we would ever be able to, in any kind of circumstance, be able to answer. I think that this is an issue. I think that if Mr. Anderson is looking for these questions, answers to these questions, which are largely why something was done, that needs to be answered directly between the parties involved. And our responsibility is making sure process is followed. And council, if anyone else has any comments around that, you're welcome to share them. Okay. Seeing none. Are there any other questions received?
Madam Mayor, if I could just comment, not specifically questions, but because they're utilizing the council email and watching Zoom in this particular case, we've received a comment from Ms. Patterson that she's watching live and her preference would be that she sees a gallery view of the participants rather than the agenda. So just thank you, Charlene. We've received that, we've acknowledged it, and we'll take that into account moving forward. We also have comments regarding the economic recovery plan submitted by Genevieve. And just so that this acknowledges that those thoughts will be shared with council, but because there are not any specific questions captured there, we won't read those out at this time.
Thank you for that. And I think that feedback regarding, or I'm looking forward to hearing Genevieve's comments on this, but I think that feedback about the Zoom meetings is helpful to receive. This is new to all of us. And it's interesting because what I'm seeing is my split screen with the agenda and all of the participants of the meeting. But that maybe is not what the public sees. So I can see all of you, but I guess what the public is seeing may be different. So that's great feedback to have. Councillor Solda, did you have a comment?
Yes, I've heard this before, Madam Mayor, from other people in the public. They want to see how we're voting and and the people speaking, just so you know that.
Thank you, that's helpful. And I'm just realizing that I forgot to call back Councillor Poon. Oops. There we go. Thank you. Okay, and assuming no other questions then?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Would somebody like to move adjournment of our meeting? Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Paulson. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending our meeting in this manner again.